Well, the Northern meeting that was to be run normally midweek, obviously, but because of the ready-to-run sales, it was due to be on the Tuesday, and it was Waipa at Te Awamutu, but unfortunately, gentlemen, it did not even get underway. The track leading in had been a good 3, then they got rain, and obviously we're seeing here a track inspection which ultimately brought about the abandonment of yet another meeting, only a couple of hours after NZTR had put out some track preparation protocols that we'll look at shortly.
Looks like Opie knew what was going to happen. Hasn't even got his jumpers on.
It's the curse, isn't it, of we have so much wet track racing in winter, and then once the tracks get hard here, unless you have irrigation, a little bit of rain and it becomes a skating rink, and that's a real issue. And that's predominantly been one of the issues with some of the southern tracks also, which get really rock hard. But let's hear from Tony Pike, who's the boss of the Trainers Association, about irrigation, about this particular track and what it could mean for track rationalisation around the country.
Look, it's becoming an unfortunate occurrence, and it's happening far too often, unfortunately. Look, Waipa is prone to it, through the spring and summer months, as sort of history will tell us. We talk about rationalisation of clubs. I think, if we look at Waipa, nothing against the club. I've raced horses there for years. There's a lot of good, hard-working people there, but look, they're sitting on a very valuable asset. The club's obviously, financially strapped for cash. They need to improve their track significantly to make it a safe racing surface. Can the industry afford to keep doing that and propping them up? That's a big question mark. So I think we need to, this is probably part of the rationalisation of courses throughout New Zealand. Waipa is probably a prime example in the situation we're in. Does the industry throw good money after bad, trying to save a course that is having too many abandonments? Or is it better off to utilise its asset, which is significant, for the betterment of the industry going forward? This could be a bit of a case study, possibly for other clubs throughout the country. Because we just cannot continue to have this happening. Jockeys have got no confidence to ride there, and it's going to get to the stage trainers aren't going to want to race their horses there, because we just don't know if the races are going to go ahead, let alone sponsors that are sponsoring races looking for a good day out. It's just very unfortunate circumstances.
Okay, I guess it's a case where any club could find themselves in that position if they don't have irrigation. Is irrigation a key sort of talking point with clubs and meetings going ahead?
Yeah, look, I think if you talk about irrigation, certain people are for it, certain people are against it. But obviously, with animal welfare and horse safety, we need irrigated courses. And obviously, through the summer months when we don't have a lot of rainfall and we get a shower of rain on an extremely firm track, this is the situation that occurs. So, we can't afford to take the risk of non-irrigated tracks through the summer. And I think that's probably part and parcel of what NZTR needs to look at when they're doing their programming going forward.
Tony Pike there, President of the Trainers Association. I mean, clearly you can sense the frustration, but also he's trying to keep it extremely rational and reasonable a conversation, which clearly he needs to, because if things are going to progress, it really is about people joining together with a common cause.
Yeah, well, first things first, it sucks. It just sucks, because if you're trying to trade a horse, as I mentioned in the last conversation, and you want to take it to the races to get a good performance, this isn't a setback of one race. These are sometimes setbacks which take you months and months to recover from. Secondly, I'm not sure about this, so I'm going to ask you about this, Bruce. There's a school of thought that, yes, you should water the track so this doesn't happen, they don't become skating rinks. And there's a thought that back in the old days they were never watered and you just let nature take its course. Now, what's your view on that? Because obviously it seemed to work all those years ago. Why does that system not work now?
Personally, as an owner, I don't want to see my horses running on firm ones, good twos.
But didn't they do that 30 years ago? I'm just playing devil's advocate. I'm not saying they should, but I'm saying, didn't they do that 30 years ago? Are the horses not as tough now as used to be? I don't understand.
I don't think they are as hard as they
find a bone, don't they? And
that European influence.
The same as the standard breed.
Yeah.
But the underlying problem is our racing surfaces are pretty disgraceful.
Yeah.
We haven't got a track that can handle much more than 20 meetings a year. That's not good enough. In this day and age, there should be 3 or 4 New Zealand tracks that can handle 40 meetings a year. And
okay.
We don't have that.
So we get to this synthetics tracks all-weather greenfields project. So one thing, first of all, synthetic track at Cambridge, which becomes raceable, and then the greenfields project, which is building a whole new place in the Waikato. Why would you build an all-weather track at Cambridge, which eventually you're going to close, to then open a different venue as a greenfields venue.
They have a life cycle in all-weather track of about 10 years. So that gives you the time to build the track. You also are going to have to be taking a lot of racing while you've got the tracks closed.
Yeah.
It's a bridge.
Yeah. So the all-weather track at Cambridge isn't something you would see, because you know a bit about this, as being a permanent thing. It'll be there forever.
No, not at all. No, it's a bridge and it's a link. And the beauty of the all-weather track being at Cambridge is the ability to use it 365 days of the year. You've got 1,200 horses training there now, trials, jump outs, reducing costs for owners as well.
Well, so I think Tony Pike made a really interesting point about you've got to look at these as a case study, because we all know that there's going to be a number. That number could be 10 or 20 tracks closed in the next 5 years. That was a key tenet of the Masara report. But it's the same question we had 3 months ago. It's the same question we're going to have in 3 months. Everybody's fine with that number. They just don't want it to be their track.
Sure.
And we've all got personal tracks we love, and the people at Waipa don't want to see their track closed. But it becomes really hard to sustain that argument when you keep losing race meetings.
I think that if there hadn't been a track in Reefton, for example, where Rion Murtha and my father grew up, would I be here? Would Sheldon have been here last week, back next week? I don't know. It's hard to know. But if the racing's not being taken to the people there, where they grow up, would they have been interested? If there wasn't a rugby club in your town growing up, would you play rugby?
And it's easy to think that's only a racing story, but it's exactly the same. I grew up in a town where there was no cricket because it was too wet to play cricket in Greymouth much. So you never meet anybody in Greymouth who cricket is their biggest deal. You know, where rugby and league are in racing. And I think if you're a kid, you don't go to the races. And the question is, how far would you go to the races? Most of us go down the road. Most of us don't go 50 kilometres when we're kids to go to the races. But also balancing that fact out, we can't sustain poor tracks. So we're going to lose 20 tracks. As I said, the question is, no one wants it to be their track. And then you get to the bigger question, the closing of Te Rapa to fund a greenfields project in Waikato. Well, Te Rapa's a pretty big place. Hamilton's a big joint. And if you had no racetrack in Hamilton because they closed Claudelands about 15 years ago, then all of a sudden you're starting to say, well, people who live in Hamilton drive 20 or 30 Ks with the drink driving rules they are now to go to the races. And I'm not saying it's an easy thing to fix, I'm just saying they're relevant problems, Bruce, because unless you have racing in your community, sometimes racing doesn't become part of your life.
NZTR have put forward some protocols, and these actually came out on the day, but prior to
2
the
hours,
abandonment.
ironically, prior to the abandonment.
Each thoroughbred racing venue required to prepare and lodge an annual track management plan with NZTR beginning this season. And I would have thought that might have been happening anyway, but clearly that hasn't been, so that's obviously a good thing. The return to racing is an interesting situation too, where we have tracks that have maintenance. Let's say Otaki is a recent example, and then they may have a few trials, but you're only talking about 4 and 5 horses going around at a time as opposed to 12 or 14.
It's not the Sotaki, it's Ellerslie.
Sure.
Ellerslie would be in that situation, and obviously they don't have those issues, but
the track advisor, Todd Treweek, this has got to help, doesn't it? Having somebody that is kind of a go-to that can bring all this together. Somebody experienced, as he is.
Here's the question for you. Who's going to close these tracks? Who's eventually going to do it? Because it's not going to be Winston Peters. Winston Peters is the Deputy Prime Minister. He's not going to walk around closing racetracks. And NZTR seem to have their boat full of things they're doing. They've got a future venues plan, but who's actually going to make these decisions and say, you're not getting a licence, you're closed? Who's going to do it, and when's it going to happen? Because there doesn't seem to be a lot of momentum in that, Bruce.
There's none.
It's very quiet. It's deathly silence.
Can I ask one brief question too?
You're in charge, you can do whatever you want.
I have a mental block around synthetic tracks. I've never had a bet on a synthetic track. I don't know. Is that just irrational?
I love them.
Okay,
I've
good.
been with them in Asia.
Yep.
I would rather have a good bet on a synthetic than a turf track.
Okay.
Even when a turf track's good, you start thinking, was it too good? Is it too firm? But you get the same surface every week.
I'm taking that on board, Michael.
I don't particularly love them, but the first time I back a winner, I'll like them a lot more, to be honest. And I do think you'd need to do your form around it, but it's pretty easy. Look, it's pretty easy to adapt to something once you want to get used to it. The most importantly is, I know one thing: nobody backed a winner at Waipa on Tuesday.
That's a fact.
Good point.
The word international has come up probably about as many times as the word Reefton today, but we'll look international right after this.